Pack your things. Your sister needs the space, Dad ordered, standing in my doorway with that familiar look of disappointment. Emma's starting her online business, and she needs an office. You have until Friday. I sat at my desk, staring at the email from my bank. If only they knew that 20 minutes ago, I'd won the auction for our family home, the same home they were trying to kick me out of. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 26, I just became my parents' landlord. Did you hear me? Dad's voice grew sharper. This isn't up for discussion. I heard you, I replied calmly, closing my laptop. I'll start packing tomorrow. He nodded curtly and left, probably relieved I hadn't argued. That's what they expected, quiet compliance. For years, I'd been the dependable daughter, the one who never caused trouble. I helped with bills when money was tight, stayed home during college to save money while Emma went to an expensive school in California. Emma, my 23-year-old sister, bounced into my room moments later, her perfectly styled blonde hair swinging. I'm thinking of painting these walls sage green, she said excitedly. It'll be perfect for my wellness coaching videos. I looked around at my room, the one I'd had since I was 6, with its soft blue walls and window seat where I spent hours reading, the room where I built my real estate business while everyone thought I was just an accountant. Sage green sounds nice, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Emma didn't know I had been tracking our parents' finances for months, watching as they remortgaged the house to fund her failed startups. She didn't know about the foreclosure notice I found in Dad's office, or the careful planning behind my purchase of the house. I know you're probably upset, Emma said, though it sounded like she didn't care, but Mom and Dad, and I, need the space for my business. You can find an apartment, right? You're good with budgets and stuff. I almost laughed. Good with budgets was an understatement. While Emma had wasted money on failed ventures, I'd been building a real estate portfolio with 12 rental properties across the city. This house would be number 13. Don't worry about me, I said, I'll figure something out. Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Mom and Dad, picking at the lasagna Mom made, probably an attempt to soften the blow. We know this is sudden, Mom said gently, but Emma really needs this opportunity. Her wellness coaching could be her big break. Like the yoga studio was her big break? I asked. Or the smoothie bar? That's not fair, Dad cut in. Your sister has vision and creativity, she just needs support. And what about my support? I asked quietly. The money I gave you for the mortgage last year? The repairs I paid for? Mom looked uncomfortable. We appreciate everything you've done, honey, but Emma has so much potential. She needs a proper space. To what? Fail again? I blurted out before I could stop myself. That's enough, Dad snapped. If you can't support your sister, maybe it's time you moved out. Emma understands business in a way you never will. All you do is work that boring accounting job and hide in your room. I stood up, taking my plate to the sink. Let them think that. Let them believe I was just the boring, reliable daughter. In 3 days, they'd see exactly what kind of business sense I had. The next morning, I watched from my window as Emma directed Dad in hanging a new vision board in what would soon be her office. She'd already started moving in expensive camera gear and yoga mats she bought with our parents' credit card. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Charlotte, paperwork is being processed. We can serve the new lease agreements on Friday. Perfect timing, I texted back. They just gave me until Friday to move out. Charlotte's response was quick. They're in for quite a surprise. Want me to be there when they find out? Yes, I replied. Come by around 6. That's when Dad usually gets home. I spent the next 2 days quietly packing, letting my family think I was preparing to leave. Emma took over more of my space, talking about her wellness business. Mom and Dad hovered, feeling guilty but convinced they were doing the right thing for Emma. None of them noticed I was only packing personal items. None of them questioned why I seemed so calm. They were too caught up in Emma's excitement. Thursday night, I overheard them in the kitchen. Sarah seems to be taking it well, Mom said. She understands it's for the best, Dad replied. Maybe this will motivate her to do something more with her life than just accounting. Did she say where she's going? Emma asked. No, but she'll figure it out. Sarah always lands on her feet. They had no idea how right they were. Friday morning, I dressed in my best business suit, one my family had never seen. I styled my brown hair, applied makeup, and wore the pearl necklace my grandmother left me. Today, I wasn't just Sarah the reliable daughter, I was Sarah Mitchell, property owner and businesswoman. I left for work as usual, but instead of going to the accounting firm, I'd actually quit months ago to run my real estate business full-time. I met with Charlotte to review the final paperwork. Are you sure about this? She asked. We could serve the papers by mail. You don't have to be there. Yes, I do, I said. They need to understand actions have consequences. Charlotte nodded. The lease terms are fair, more than fair. You're offering them below market rate. They'd be foolish not to take it. They're not always wise with money, I said dryly, hence the foreclosure. At 5:45 p.m., I pulled into my driveway. Mom's car was there, along with Emma's SUV, but Dad wasn't home yet. Perfect. I walked in to find Emma directing two men moving my bed out. She'd already painted one wall sage green. Oh good, you're back, she said, not even feeling guilty. Since you're leaving tomorrow, I thought I'd get started. Actually, I said, my voice clear and firm, I need everyone to stop what they're doing, now. They paused. Even Emma looked up. What's going on? Mom asked, coming upstairs. I think we should wait for Dad, I said. Charlotte will be here soon, and we need to talk. Charlotte? Emma frowned. Who's Charlotte? Right on cue, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Charlotte, polished and professional in her suit. Mrs. Mitchell, she said. I'm Charlotte Way, Sarah's attorney. Is Mr. Mitchell home yet? We have important documents to discuss. Mom's face went pale. Attorney? Sarah, what's this about? Like I said, I replied calmly, we should wait for Dad. The next 10 minutes were tense. Emma's gym friends made excuses and left. Mom sat rigid on the couch, and Emma paced nervously. Charlotte and I sat calmly, waiting. When Dad's car pulled in, I took a deep breath. This was it. Dad walked in, looking around. What's going on? Charlotte stood up and extended her hand. I'm Charlotte, Sarah's attorney. We're here to give you some important documents about your living situation. Dad turned to Mom and then to me. Living situation? I stood up and pulled an envelope from Charlotte's briefcase. 3 weeks ago, I found a foreclosure notice in your office. You didn't tell us about it. You remortgaged this house to try to fund Emma's businesses, I said. Dad's face turned red. That's none of your. It is my business, I interrupted, because today, I bought this house at the foreclosure auction. Silence filled the room. Emma stopped pacing, and Mom put her hand over her mouth. Dad's face turned from red to pale. That's not possible, he said, stumbling over his words. You're an accountant. You couldn't afford. I haven't just been an accountant for 2 years, I replied. I own 12 other properties in the city. Real estate investment is my business. The accounting job was just a cover. This is a joke, Emma said, but she sounded unsure. Tell her this is ridiculous, Dad. Charlotte pulled out more papers. I assure you, it's real. This is the new deed showing Sarah Mitchell as the owner of 1242 Maple Street. I also have lease agreements if you want to stay here. Mom started crying. Dad looked stunned. Emma kept shaking her head. You can't do this, Emma whispered. This is our home. No, I said firmly. This was our home. Now it's my property. You can sign a lease to stay, or find somewhere else. I'll be moving back into my room on Monday. Dad's whole demeanor changed. He wasn't the same man who had ordered me out just days ago. He looked lost and defeated. All this time, he said quietly, we thought you were just the reliable daughter, the boring accountant. We didn't see what you were really doing. I smiled, but it wasn't out of happiness. Maybe it's time you realize success doesn't always look like Instagram followers and sage green walls, I said. Charlotte explained the lease documents. I watched their faces as they understood what had happened. The power had shifted. They'd underestimated me. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about respect and showing them there are consequences. It was about finally being seen for who I really was. The weekend after I revealed I owned the house was tense. Emma refused to move her things out. Mom cried. Dad barely spoke after Charlotte left. I stayed in a hotel, giving them space to process. Charlotte said they needed time to accept this new reality. They're in shock, Charlotte said over brunch. Your dad's pride is hurt. Emma's plan just collapsed. Let them adjust. I nodded, stirring my coffee. Emma's posting online about toxic family members and betrayal. She's trying to twist the story. Are you surprised? Charlotte raised an eyebrow. No, I said. It's what she always does when things don't go her way, but this time, she can't manipulate her way out of it. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Please come home. We need to talk. Charlotte saw the message and gave me a look. Remember, you're the property owner now. Don't let them guilt you back into old habits. I went home that afternoon to find my family in the living room. Emma was in an armchair, eyes red from crying. Dad was on the couch, looking older. Mom stood by the window, wringing her hands. "We've been talking," Mom started, her voice shaking, "about everything, and..." Dad interrupted. "You blindsided us, all this time pretending to be just an accountant, while secretly plotting against us?" "Plotting?" I laughed. "I was building a business, something you always wanted Emma to do. The difference is, I succeeded. By going behind our backs," Emma shouted, "by stealing our house." "I didn't steal anything," I said calmly. "I bought this house legally when you let it go into foreclosure. The same house I helped pay the mortgage on, money you used to fund Emma's failed businesses." Emma flinched. Mom made a small, distressed noise. Dad finally spoke. "We've read the lease terms. They're fair, more than fair." "Of course they are," I replied. "I'm not trying to punish anyone, I'm setting clear boundaries." "But my business," Emma started. "Your business isn't my concern," I cut in. "If you sign the lease, you'll be like any other tenants, pay rent on time, maintain the house, and follow the terms." "And if we don't sign?" Dad asked. "Then you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. The choice is yours." Mom stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, honey, can't we talk about this? As a family?" "We are talking," I said, "but this isn't a family discussion anymore, Mom. This is a business deal. You made sure of that when you kicked me out of my own room." The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. For the first time, they were realizing the consequences of their actions, taking me for granted while prioritizing Emma's wants. "I'll sign," Dad said finally, his voice rough. "We don't have much choice, do we?" "There's always a choice," I replied. "Just like you chose to remortgage the house for Emma's projects instead of telling her no, just like you chose to kick me out without a second thought." Emma suddenly stood up. "This isn't fair. I have plans for that room. My wellness coaching will have to happen somewhere else." I responded firmly. "If you sign the lease, you can keep your room. I'll be moving back into mine on Monday, but all the work I've done, like the painting, needs to be restored to its original condition as stated in the lease." Mom tried once more. "Sarah, please, we're still your family." I thought for a moment. "Yes, you are. And maybe that's why this needed to happen. Family doesn't mean enabling bad choices or taking advantage. It means honesty, respect, and accountability." Dad picked up the lease agreement from the coffee table, staring at it as if it might bite him. "You really thought this through, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I replied, meeting his gaze. "You always encouraged Emma to seize business opportunities. I was paying attention, even if you didn't notice." He looked ashamed. By Sunday evening, they had all signed the lease. Emma was still crying but had started moving her things back to her original room. Mom had stopped crying and was cleaning, her way of coping. Dad had gone to his study, probably trying to figure out how he missed so much about his supposedly predictable older daughter. I oversaw as Emma's gym friends moved my bed back into my room. The sage green wall would need repainting, but that could wait. What mattered was that, for the first time, my family was facing real boundaries and consequences. By Monday morning, I had moved back in. As I unpacked my clothes and reorganized my space, I could hear Emma down the hall, complaining loudly to someone about her control freak sister who ruined everything. Mom knocked on my door, hesitating in the doorway. "Can we talk?" I gestured for her to come in, noting how unsure she seemed in a room she had been ready to give away just days ago. "I've been thinking," she said, sitting on the window seat, "about everything. About how we treated you compared to Emma. And, I'm sorry," she said quietly. "We got so caught up in helping Emma achieve her dreams that we took you for granted. We assumed, because you were successful and responsible, that you didn't need our support." "I didn't need your support," I replied. "But I deserved your respect." She nodded, tears welling up. "Yes, you do. You do. I just never imagined you were capable of all this. That's the problem, Mom. None of you ever imagined I could be more than what you decided I was." She was quiet for a moment, looking around the room. 12 properties, you said. All here in the city. 13 now, I corrected her. And yes, they're all local, mostly small apartment buildings and a few family homes like this one. I did it all myself, while you all thought I was just an accountant. I smiled slightly. The accounting job paid the bills while I built my portfolio. Every extra penny went into investments, while Emma spent her money on business ventures that failed. I was quietly building something real. Mom wiped her eyes. We should have seen it. We should have encouraged you the way we did her, maybe, she said softly. But I didn't, and now we all have to live with the choices we made. She stood up, smoothing her skirt nervously. Will you join us for dinner tonight, as a family? I considered it. Yes, I said finally, but remember, our relationship as a family is separate from our relationship as landlord and tenant. Those boundaries need to stay clear. She nodded, understanding slowly dawning. You really have thought of everything, haven't you? I learned that from you, too, I said. All those times you taught Emma about launching her businesses, I was watching, learning, even if you didn't realize it. As she left, I heard Emma's door slam down the hall. There would be more drama, more attempts at manipulation, more testing of boundaries. But for the first time, I felt secure in my position. I had protected myself and my interests while still leaving room for my family to grow and learn from their mistakes. It wasn't the happy ending they had imagined, with Emma running her wellness empire from my converted bedroom, but maybe it was the ending we all needed, one where truth, consequences, and real growth were possible. I sat at my desk, looking out at the familiar view from my window, and smiled. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's simply standing your ground and demanding the respect you deserve. A month into our new living arrangement, the initial shock had worn off, but the adjustments weren't always smooth. Emma, what do you mean my payment was rejected? She demanded one morning, storming into the kitchen where I was having coffee. I sent it through Venmo, I explained, looking up from my laptop. The lease clearly says, rent must be paid by check or bank transfer, no personal payment apps. This is a business deal, not splitting a meal with friends. That's ridiculous. Nobody uses checks anymore, professional landlords do. She shot back. You have until the end of today to pay correctly, or late fees will apply, she warned, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. An hour later, Dad came home from the bank carrying a cashier's check. Clearly, he had rescued Emma yet again. She needs to learn, he said gruffly as he handed it over. I nodded while writing a receipt. Yes, she does, and so do you. He looked surprised, then thoughtful. It was probably the first time someone openly talked about how he enabled Emma's poor decisions. The real change happened 3 weeks later. I was reviewing property reports in my home office, once known as my room, when I heard loud voices downstairs. What do you mean you won the cosign? Emma shouted. I need this loan to restart my wellness coaching. No, Emma, Dad's voice was firm in a way I rarely heard. We almost lost the house with your earlier ventures. We're lucky your sister could buy it, or we'd be homeless. Lucky? Emma scoffed. You're holding it over us, charging below market rent and giving us a shot to fix our mistakes. Mom said, which is more than most people would do. I smiled a little and continued working. They were finally starting to understand. Later that evening, Emma knocked on my door, the first time she had sought me out since I took charge of the house. Can we talk? She asked, hesitating in the doorway. I gestured to the chair across my desk, and she sat, nervously fidgeting with her phone case. I've been thinking about everything, about how I rushed into businesses without planning, and maybe I could use some advice on doing it the right way. I put my work aside to listen. What kind of advice? How did you build all this while no one noticed? She asked. Every business I tried failed in a few months, but with you, I planned, I said simply. I did research, started small, and reinvested everything. No shortcuts, no asking Mom and Dad for money, just hard work and a good plan. She was quiet for a moment. Would you show me how to make a real business plan? For the first time, Emma admitted she could learn from her older sister. Yes, I said, but my help comes with conditions. Do the work yourself. No shortcuts. And no borrowing Mom and Dad's money. If you want to build something real, you have to do it right. She nodded slowly, just like you did. The next morning, I went downstairs to find Mom and Dad already at the kitchen table, looking worried. Everything okay? I asked while pouring coffee. We've been looking at our finances, Dad said, really looking at them for the first time in a long while. It's not good. I sat with them as they explained years of bad money choices, mostly spending on Emma's failed ventures and living beyond their means. The foreclosure I stopped was not the only problem. We don't know how to fix this, Mom admitted softly. I opened my laptop. First, we make a plan, then we stick to it. No exceptions. No decisions made from emotion. Dad looked at me with new respect. When did you get so wise? I always was, I said. You just never noticed. Over the next few weeks, a new routine began. Emma joined me in the office each morning, learning about business planning and managing money. Mom and Dad also came to these sessions, partly to support Emma, but mostly to learn themselves. Your sister is teaching us more than we ever taught her, Mom said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner, perhaps because she had learned the hard way. Sometimes those are the best lessons, I replied. The real test came when Emma presented her new business plan, not for wellness coaching or social media stardom, but for a practical service, helping small businesses organize their online presence. She had found a real need, done proper research, and made realistic estimates. I'd like to rent office space, she announced. Not here, a real commercial space. Small at first but with room to grow. And how will you fund this? Dad asked, clearly reaching for his checkbook, along with my own savings. Emma said firmly, I work part-time at a coffee shop and live on a budget. It's not much, but it's a real start. Dad's proud eyes met mine, filled with surprise. This wasn't the Emma who always demanded money and attention. This was a new, independent Emma. I might know of a small commercial space, I offered. One of my properties has a vacant office. The rent is reasonable, and it's in a good spot. Emma's eyes brightened. Then she grew suspicious. You're not offering this just because we're family, right? I smiled. No, I'm offering it because you finally have a solid plan and the right approach. You'll sign a proper lease and follow the same rules as any other tenant. I'd like that, she said, doing it the right way this time. Our parents watched us talk. I saw their faces change, pride mixed with understanding. They were no longer seeing us as just the responsible Sarah and the creative Emma, but as women who had grown into our own. Later that night, I sat in the window seat, looking out at the familiar view that had almost been lost. The house that nearly tore us apart was slowly bringing us together, not as the broken family we once were, but as a stronger unit. My phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. How's the family situation? Better, I replied. They're learning. We all are. Sometimes the biggest victories come from changing the way people think instead of winning fights. That night, as I got ready for bed, I heard Emma in her room, working on her business plan instead of filming social media content. Change was happening. It just took someone brave enough to force it. 6 months after I bought our family home, I stood in the doorway of Emma's new office space, watching her arrange her desk with the care she once used for her Instagram style. The small commercial space in one of my properties had become a professional workspace, complete with a small conference room and a simple sign reading Mitchell Digital Solutions. What do you think? She asked, adjusting her computer monitor. Professional enough? I replied. Very, she said, now dressed in smart business casual. Your first client meeting is tomorrow. She nodded, a mix of excitement and nerves on her face. 3 local businesses have signed contracts, small ones, but it's a start. A real start. Just like the ones I made, I said with a smile. Yeah, she laughed. No more expecting overnight success or asking Mom and Dad to pay for everything. I still couldn't believe our parents were taking business classes at the community college, an unexpected change after facing our finances. Our parents had decided to learn for themselves. Dad's pride had finally turned to wisdom, and Mom had discovered a knack for bookkeeping. Speaking of the house, Mom said as she straightened a framed family photo on her desk, I have a check ready, no Venmo. Good, I replied, pausing. I've been thinking about making changes to the arrangement. Her face fell a bit. You're not selling, are you? No, I assured her, but I'm considering offering you a rent-to-own agreement. You've shown you can be responsible, and it's still your home, too. What about me? Emma asked. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. But I think you'll be looking for your own place soon, especially if your client meetings go well. She smiled, and for the first time, I saw my sister as an equal, not someone to compete with or clean up after, but as someone finding her own strength. That evening, we had a family dinner, a new weekly tradition instead of a battleground. Mom had cooked everyone's favorites, and Dad told stories from his business class. My professor used Sarah's property management plan as a case study, he proudly announced. I didn't tell him it was my daughter, she just called it an example of smart business growth. I asked as I passed the salad, and he said, it was brilliant, a masterclass in strategy. Dad's eyes grew misty. I should have seen it sooner, Sarah, what you were building, we all should have, Mom added softly. Maybe, I said, but we're seeing it now, all of us. After dinner, I gave them the rent-to-own proposal. Dad read it carefully, no longer frightened by legal terms or business talk. This is very generous, he said at last. It's fair, I corrected him. You've shown you can handle responsibility and learned from your past mistakes. That deserves recognition. Emma, who had been quiet, spoke up. I've been thinking, maybe I should find my own place soon. Start building my own future like you did, Sarah. Mom reached for Emma's hand. Are you sure, honey? You know you're welcome to stay. I know, Emma smiled, but you taught me something important. Success isn't about having everything given to you. It's about building something real, something that's truly yours. I looked around the table at my family, not perfect, but growing, learning, and changing. The house that nearly tore us apart had become the base for something stronger. Later that night, as I sat in my room, a space that now stood for earned respect, I thought about how far we'd come. Emma was building a real business. Our parents were taking control of their finances, and I was no longer the overlooked daughter but a woman whose strength had helped our family heal. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Thank you, not just for the office space, but for showing me a better way. I smiled and texted back, you did the work, I just showed you the door. Sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the greatest growth. The house that built me had, in its own way, rebuilt us all. As I got ready for bed, I heard Emma practice her client presentation next door and Mom and Dad discussing class assignments downstairs. I knew this wasn't the perfect ending any of us expected, but it was exactly what we needed. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it, just like family should be.